Hey, what's going on everybody? It's your bro, hope you're doing well, and in this video I'm going to show you all how we can code a basic game of Tic Tac Toe using Python, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. If you find this video helpful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support will help keep this channel running. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's create a game of Tic Tac Toe. To begin, we'll need to import tkinter as well as random. And let's begin by defining all of the different functions that we'll need. Let's define a function named next turn. For the time being, we'll just write pass. We'll fill this in later on. We'll need a function named check winner. A function named empty spaces to check if there are any empty spaces left. And lastly, a function named new game that will launch a new game for us. Okay, we have our 4 functions. Now let's create a window. Let's create a window. Window equals tk. And at the end of our program, we need to use window.main loop. And when we run this, we should have just a small basic window. Let's set the title. Window.title. Let's set this to Tic Tac Toe. We'll need a list of players. Players equals x, comma, o. And with the way that we're writing this program, we can swap these symbols with a different character. For example, we could say $sign is playing against the @ symbol too. But I'll demonstrate that later. Let's keep it as x and o for now. Now, we need to select a random player to begin. Player equals random.choice and pass in our list of players. Now we'll need 9 buttons. I'm going to create a 2D list of buttons named buttons. And this will be the first row. This will be the second row. For the time being, I'm just going to initialize these with 0 for everything. And put these all within a list. So we have a 2D list named buttons. And to better visualize this, I'm going to place each row on a new line. So that's what our board is going to look like. We have a 2D list named buttons. We'll need a label to display whose turn it is. Label equals label. I'll set the text equal to player plus the word turn. And I'll set the font to font equals, pick whatever font that you want. And I am going to pack this label, label.pack, and set the side equal to top. And let's run this just to test it. Okay, looks like it's X's turn. Let's try it again. O's turn. Okay, that's fine for now. Let's create a reset button. Reset underscore button equals button. I'll set the text equal to restart. It's going to be a restart button or reset button. Pick a font. Maybe I'll set the size to 20. And we'll need a command. Command equals new game. When we click on this button, it's going to call this new game function for us. And we need to pack this button. Reset button dot pack, and I will set the side equal to top. Okay, let's see if that appears. All right, so we have our turn order, a label that will display whose turn it is, as well as our reset button. Now we'll need to create all of the buttons to add to our 2D list named buttons, but I'm going to place these all within a frame. Frame equals frame. We're adding our frame to our window, and I'm going to pack this frame. Frame.pack. Now we'll take our 2D list of buttons and add a button to each spot, and I think the best way to do this would be to use nested for loops. We'll have an outer for loop in charge of the rows. For row in range 3. Remember, we only have 3 rows and 3 columns. the inner for loop will be in charge of the columns. For column in range 3. And inside the inner for loop, we're going to create a new button. We'll say buttons at index, row, and column. We have 2 indexes because we have a 2D list. So buttons at row whatever, column whatever, depending on what iteration we are within our for loops. We'll create a new button, and we'll set the text. Oh, first add this to the frame. Almost forgot about that. We're adding our buttons to our frame and adding the frame to the window. Now we'll set the text equal to a blank set of quotes because we don't want any text. We'll set the font. I'll just copy what we have here for label. For a width, let's say 5, and a height, let's say 2. I'm going to hit enter just to move down to the next line because we still have a few more things to fill in. Okay, we'll need a command. Command equals, and I'm going to set this equal to a lambda function, so we need some arguments. Actually, I think I'll pass in some keyword arguments. Row equals row, and column equals column. Then our expression is next turn, and we will pass in row and column. Now we also need to add our buttons to our frame. Buttons at index of row and column. We'll use the grid function for this. Grid, row equals row, and column equals column. And it's always a good idea to test your program after making any major changes, so we should have our label, our reset button, and our grid of buttons. Now that the main body of our program is complete, let's head to the next turn function. And remember that we're passing in row and column as arguments, so we need to set up those parameters within the next turn function. Row and column. And the first line within here, we would like access to our player. So let's say global player so that we have access to it. And we're first going to check to see if the button that we click on is empty. So buttons at index of row and index of column. To access the text of a button, just add a third index operator and type in text. If the text of our button that we click is equal to a set of quotes, that means it's empty. And when we call check winner, 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 chicken dinner, and it's false, there is no winner, then we will fill in that button with our player, our player's character, whatever it is, X or O or whatever we decide. So within here, let's check to see if player is equal to players at index 0. That is our first player, and remember that we created a list of players, and we're planning on swapping these later. We could say like if player is equal to X, but that would make our program less flexible if we want to pick like a different character instead of an X. So if player is equal to players at index 0, whatever symbol is there, then we are going to take buttons at index of row, index of column, take our text, and set it equal to our player. And we should check to see if there's a winner after filling in this button. If check winner, and we still need to fill in this function, returns false, then we will switch players. Player equals players at index of 1. And label.config text equals players at index 1 plus the word turn. So what we did here is that we're checking to see if after placing our text of our player on that button that we click, if there is no winner, then we're going to swap players. Player equals our next player, and we're configuring our label so that it displays the next player's turn. Players at index 1, turn. Now, what if there is a winner? Let's say else if check winner is true. Then we will take our label .config and set the text equal to players at index 0 plus the word wins. Now let's add another else if statement. Else if there's a tie. Let's say check winner is equal to the word tie, because we are already using false and true. Then let's change our label, and I'm just going to copy this. Text equals the word tie. Okay, so let's create an else block. So that goes right here. So if it's not player 1's turn, player at index 0, then it's our other player's turn, player at index of 1, so O then. So we just need to mostly just copy this text and change a few things around. So I'm going to copy all of this. And within here, let's set player equals players at index 0, then players at index 0's turn, players at index 1 wins, and that is it. Now our next turn function is now complete. Let's head down to the check winner function, and we need to check all of the different win conditions and return true if somebody won, false if there is yet no winner, and the word tie if it's a tie. So let's check all of the horizontal win conditions. So we can do this using a for loop. For row in range 3, we need to check the text of each button in each row. If buttons at index of row and column index of 0, we'll use the index operator to check the text, is equal to the next button in our row. So I will copy this and change 0 to 1. Check to see if that is equal to buttons at index of row, index of 2. And I'm going to check to see if this is all not equal, let me move this a little bit, to a space. So if that is the case, that means somebody won. So if all of these buttons are the same and they are not equal to an empty space, that means they're all the same. So let's return true. That means that somebody won. Now we need to check the vertical win conditions if anybody has the same character all the way down a single column. This next for loop is going to be for column in range 3. For the first button, this will be button at index of 0 and column, then 1 and column, let me just paste that, and 2 and column. Now we need to check the diagonal win conditions. So if buttons at index 0, 0, that's the top left corner, if the text of that button is equal to buttons at indexes of 1, 1, is equal to the indexes of button 2, 2. And if all of this does not equal an empty space, then return true, so there is a winner. And we have one last win condition to check, that is the other diagonal win condition. So we just need to change some of these indexes around. So we have 0, 2, 1, 1, and 2, 0. I'm going to change this statement to an else if statement. Now we need to check to see if there's any spaces remaining. Else if we will call the empty spaces function, which we have yet to fill in. If this returns false, then we will return the word tie. And lastly, else. Else there is no winner and no tie, so we will return false. And that is it for the check winner function. Let's test this. So this doesn't account for a tie quite yet, but we can fill in some of these spaces. Looks like X wins, and we can no longer fill in buttons. And we cannot start a new game quite yet either. Within the empty spaces function, let's create a local variable named spaces and set this equal to 9 whenever we call this function. For row in range 3, and we'll create a nested for loop for column in range 3. We will check the text of each button if buttons at indexes of row and column, and we will check the text to see if it's not equal to an empty space. If that is the case, spaces minus equals 1. Then we'll write an if statement. If spaces, as in spaces remaining, is equal to 0, that means we will return false and there are no spaces left. Else, we will return true. Okay, let's test it. So this time I'm trying to get a tie. Yep, it looks like it's a tie. This next part's optional, but I would like to change the color of each button for the winning combination. So within our check winner function, underneath the first win condition, I'm going to take buttons at index of row and index of 0, use the config method, and set the background color equal to, let's say, green. And I'm going to repeat this process for the other buttons within this win condition. So that is row 0, row 1, and row 2. I'll copy all of this, paste it, and switch some of these around. So these should all be matching. So 0 and column, 1 and column, and 2 and column. Okay, so we have 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 2. And one more. 0, 2, 1, 1, and 2, 0. Now, when we have a winning combination, the color of the buttons involved in that combination are going to change to green. Now, if there's a tie, let's change all of the buttons to, let's say, yellow. So I'm going to write nested for loops for this. For row in range 3, for column in range 3, take our buttons at row and column and change the background color to yellow or some other color of your choosing. So if there's a tie, they should all be yellow. I'm trying not to win here. It's actually more complex than what I thought. Yep, it looks like it's all a tie. And the last thing that we need to do is to fill in the new game function so that we can begin a new game. So let's say global player, we would like access to our player from inside this function, and set player equal to a new random choice. Random.choice, and pass in our list of players. And we will change our label, label.config, and set the text equal to player plus the word turn. And we also need to reset all of our buttons. For row in range 3, for column in range 3, buttons at index of row and index of column dot config text equals a set of quotes, so it's empty, and we'll change the background color back to what was previously. So the default color for buttons is actually hexadecimal, F0, F0, F0. So this function will begin a new game for us, and let's test it to be sure. I'm gonna start a new game, reset, reset. I'll actually try and win this time, and reset. Okay, so it looks like the new game function is working. Now, another thing that you can do too is that you can change the players around. Let's say we would like to play as $sign and @sign. So this program is flexible enough so that you can change the icons of the players. Alright everybody, so that's a basic game of Tic Tac Toe for Python. If you would like a copy of this code, I will post all of this to the comment section down below. But yeah, that's how to code a basic game of Tic Tac Toe for Python. Hey you, yeah, I'm talking to you. If you learned something new, then help me help you in 3 easy steps by smashing that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro.